The Vice President's critics, Diane, say that you get what you see and it isn't much. His fans say that's a bum rap. The Vice President began a vacation in Wyoming today and was unable to be with us live tonight, but we went yesterday to meet him in his office in the old Executive Office building near the White House to talk to him for almost an hour, and here is some of what he told us.
Let's talk then about the poll, the ABC News Washington Post poll which came out, which did show that a slight majority of the people gave you a positive rating in the job of Vice President.
2 to 1. Ratio of 2 to 1 said that Dan Quayle was doing a good job. It's a positive poll.
Well, take the 52% who also said they didn't think you were qualified to be president. And this is a year later. Why haven't they been persuaded?
Well, first of all, I am vice president. And if you ask if they think that I'm qualified to be vice president, the answer to that came back in that poll, yes.
But there were more who thought that in 1992 there should be a change of candidate than not.
But 1992 is a long way away. And there are a couple people that feel very comfortable about me in this job. One is President George Bush, and the other is myself.
Well, let's talk about what some of those so-called experts, people who've been described as your handlers during the campaign, said about you in this new book by Jules Witcover and Jack Germond, whose broad stripes and bright stars, the trivial pursuit of the presidency. They painted you, some of them, as somebody who really wasn't very bright.
Clearly, those people that made those statements didn't know me. And people that know me certainly don't think that of me. So if you want to read some good fiction, read some of the quotes about Dan Quayle in that book.
Well, there's several, but of course, people bring up things that you said, not something in a book. When you were talking about the Holocaust and said it was the most obscene chapter in our history, meaning this country. Was that just nervousness? I think people would understand it if it was.
I have had hundreds of news conferences. I've made hundreds of speeches. I have made a few misstatements. And unfortunately, you all take all those misstatements and bring them back up and put them back on the air. The thing in my profession is there are no retakes in my business. And I stand by all the misstatements that I've made.
People wonder how you feel about it when something like the United Negro College Fund, a mind is a terrible thing to waste, which you ventured down the lane of talking about.
And you take the UNCF motto that what a waste it is to lose one's mind or not to have a mind is being very wasteful. How true that is.
When you watch it again replayed on television, do you cringe? Do you any of this?
Well, now, Sam has one misstatement. You have the second misstatement, and I presume you have a third one that I have in my mind. Outside that will be beyond...
Which one do you have in mind?
Never mind. I'll let you bring it up. But after that, you're going to say, well, Dan Quayle made 3 misstatements in a period of a year. But the question is on whether I am helping this president or not. And I believe that this president is off to a very good start. And he has accomplished a lot. And I've been part of that team, and I think that we're doing quite well.
Mr. Vice President, is your wife smarter than you are?
You know something, Sam? I'm smart enough not to answer a question like that.
Well, I asked not to be disrespectful, but because,
well, then
again,
don't ask it.
in a lot of the clips that I've read and a lot of the stories about you, your wife is described by the writer as being smarter than you are, that she's the brains in the family, that she sort of sits back there and takes notes and manipulates you. I wanted to give you a chance to say hogwash.
Well, Sam, I am, as I said, I am smart enough not to get into a contest about whether I am smarter than my wife or my wife is smarter than me. I really think that that is something I'll just pass on.
But what is it like when you read that, this is a highly dubious census, I'm sure, but you read that you were the #1 butt of jokes from Johnny Carson, from Jay Leno, from David Letterman. Anything you want to say to Misters Carson, Leno, and Letterman?
Well, I think they are delighted to have me around. As a matter of fact, as you know, this administration is in the job creation business. And you have to say that this vice president has created a few jobs for comedians and writers of comedians. But look back through the years, the office of vice president, whoever's held this office, has in fact been subjected to a lot of jokes and a lot of ridicule.
You must have some resentment. against what? Reporters, comedians, people who've been beating on you for a year and saying Dan Quayle is something else.
I don't have resentment. Clearly, I have memories. And the one thing about it is that people really don't know me. For example, you've interviewed me 3 times, I believe, twice on Brinkley and once on Nightline. But I've never sat down and met you. I don't think I've actually ever shaken your hand before, just now. People don't know me. People don't know who Dan Quayle is.
Do you think that the problem not knowing you goes back to what happened during the campaign? I remember the first time the American public saw you when you came out in New Orleans in front of the boat. We read that at the time these people in charge of your campaign took a look at you, putting your arm around the presidential candidate and said, "Oop, we've got to correct that, got to get to that right away." Is that when it began?
The campaign was a period of 2.5 months out of my political life. My political life has been about 13 years now. Clearly, the national attention that we received on the campaign trail was the most attention that we've ever received. And the one thing I've learned over this last year is the real value of loyalty. And being loyal to George Bush is very easy, but he has certainly taught me a very, very important lesson.
Because not many people have been loyal to you?
Not that, the importance of loyalty, of being loyal, being discreet, being confidential, and putting your energies behind the president.
You feel you've been betrayed?
Betrayed? I haven't been
Say
betrayed.
you've learned the importance of loyalty. Do you feel that people have betrayed you? A lot of people who've gone out and talked about you.
Yeah, but those people didn't know me, so I don't feel a sense of betrayal. Betrayal is somebody that you really bring into your confidence and open yourself up to, and then turns out to be a Judas, so to speak.
Let's move ahead, if we may. I want to talk, and Diane wants to talk about things going on in the world today.
Good.
Let me ask you about something that's happening in Washington. It would be comical, I guess, if it weren't so serious. Felix Bloch, suspected by the FBI of being a Soviet spy, it sort of leads the FBI and all the reporters and photographers who are assigned to follow him on a merry chase. And isn't this the theater of the absurd? What's going to happen there?
Well, it is an unfortunate situation because you have allegations of criminal conduct, but no indictment yet. And it is somewhat of a theater.
Doesn't that make a laughingstock of the FBI? What sort of picture does that send to the world?
Well, why don't you not follow him down? Tell the media to leave him alone. Quit reporting about it.
Well, now, you say you were an ex-reporter. Now, you know the answer to that, sir.
Well, but you're helping create this theater and creating this circus, and I was an ex-reporter, and there is certain judgments that need to be rendered, and I'm not going to impose my ideas and say that if I was the publisher of the Huntington Herald-Press or if I was the president of ABC News, that I would say, Sam and Jack and others, leave them alone.
You bet you wouldn't.
But let me tell you something. You could, in fact, impose some discipline.
What?
Leave him alone.
If you wouldn't say leave him alone. Wait a second. You just said, sir, that you wouldn't say leave him alone.
Well, I'm not sure I would, but I would.
Right,
I'm not sure that I would if I was in that position, but
I guess
I'm in
the
this
end result
position. I'd
is,
like for you to leave him
how
alone.
long can it go on? I mean, are we going to be sitting here, and I hope you'll invite us back 6 months from now, a year from now, the FBI, poor guys, still out there in their automobiles all night long outside of his place?
Well, something's got to break in this case sooner or later, and sooner the better.
Most polls indicate that most Americans believe drugs continue to be the #1 problem in this country. Do you agree?
It's the #1 domestic problem. There is absolutely no doubt about it.
And now you're going to come down hard on the users.
Yes.
The people who just use it in casual ways. What do you have in mind?
Well, we have a very specific proposal, and it's going to be unveiled on September the 5th. But one of the principles...
You won't tell us, in other words.
I can't give you an advance notice on that. But let me tell you, one of the principles in that drug legislation will be accountability, personal accountability.
But you're suggesting that perhaps the penalties would even include jail term.
Good.
How long would you have in mind?
We need to build the jails and make sure that they stay in jail if they go there.
You really mean casual users should go to jail?
Cocaine, heroin,
Marijuana?
marijuana, any drug user better know that there's going to be a penalty.
I just want to make sure I understand. If one of your children were ever to try marijuana, what do you think the right punishment of the law should be for them?
First of all, I hope my kids don't. And
But if they do, as as polls indicate a lot of American kids do.
A lot of them do. If they do, then they ought to know what the consequences are, and they will also know that they are not going to have mom or dad to try to get them any kind of preferential treatment. They stand on their own.
Wait a second.
If they go on that kind of thing, don't call home.
I was going to say, you took the words out of my mouth. The first thing they would do is call home and talk to mom and dad.
They'll call mom, dad, and say, "We told you about it. You're on your own."
Some of the people who know you have said, look, here's somebody who really, by his own admission, had a pretty good life, a pretty easy life, a lot of smooth sailing, suddenly ran into the incredible turbulence of this past year, and it has changed him. Has it changed you?
In life, you have a lot of ups and downs, and you learn by experience. Clearly, I have learned in this last year. I've had a lot of experience in this last year. I've had a lot of experience in these last 7 months. And I don't believe that it's changed me. I still have the same values that I had before I was put on the
bruised inside?
Not,
you have some dark nights?
well, I will confess that I am not as sound a sleeper as I used to be. But I don't believe that it has changed me. I have the same values. I think that I have certainly learned a lot.
What was the low point?
The low point in the campaign?
In this past year?
In this past year? I don't think there's any real low point. There were tough times, there were troubling times, but I can tell you what the high point was, and the high point was Inauguration Day. And it's been a continuous high serving with this president, who is probably one of the most decent people I have ever met.
Do you want to be president someday?
I want to be vice president. I have never run for president.
Well, no, but I mean, someday would you like to?
Well, let me say this. I've served as a member of the House, I've served in the Senate, and I have been vice president.
And you're 42.
And I'm 42. So come back, stay tuned, and we'll see.
In other words, yes.
Yeah. On that note, we want to thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Do you want to take a parting shot, by the way, at Walter Mondale, who gave you a C on your vice presidential report card?
It's better than some of the grades I got in school.